Peace. Welcome to the channel. It's the Hood Mystic, and today we're talking about the Austin, Texas bombing. I just want you to pay attention to this saying, beware the Ides of March, and then at the end of the video, I will explain what this saying means and how this applies to the Austin, Texas bombing. But while we're here, I am the Hood Mystic. This is www.hoodmystic.com, and you are now in tune to the deeper, more occult version of what happened at the Austin, Texas bombing. Now realize that there's a lot of information that's not out about this case. So generally, as a member of society, I have more questions than I have answers, and so I'm just going to point out some of the questions that I have with this case, why no one's talking about it, and some things that I just find downright weird. And we're just gonna talk about it, man. The truth about the Austin, Texas bombing coming up, man. This is gonna be a doozy, so make sure you sitting down for this one, cause this shit is crazy. So today we're talking about two gentlemen that passed away allegedly over the month of March 2018. We have a Mr. Anthony House, and we have a Mr. Draylen Mason. Anthony House died March 2nd. Draylen Mason, who was 17, died on March 12th. And condolences, and nobody wants to lose family members and things of that nature. So just condolences to their families. But my thing is, why is no one talking about these two gentlemen? Why is there no rallies? There's no marches. There's no protests. There's no activists speaking up for them in their defense. It's just like, another two black men dead. And generally, when we see in the news and things of that nature, they usually pump something like this up. There would be some type of dialogue or some type of discussion around it. But ultimately, this news story would have just went under my radar until I had to take a step back and really look at the details and some of the things that were connected and some of the things that didn't happen. Then my mind just started to be like, everything just was right in front of me, and I'm just like, well, damn, they just putting it all out there now, and they just don't really care. So we gonna really break down what happened with this case, but y'all gotta stick with me, all right? So we gonna look at a news article taken from CNN.com, titled, "These are the victims of the Austin bombings." This is taken from CNN.com, March 22nd, 2018. The first thing that I want you to notice is the number 3, and then you have these 3 FBI agents and things of that nature. The FBI, they deal with stuff. They were there on site. If you look at old news clips and things of that nature, soon as there was a bomb, the FBI was there to control the narrative, to keep the narrative sustainable so we could have something to digest. Because generally, if a bomb just went off somewhere, it's not to say that the FBI would be there, in full force off of just one bombing. Now, I can understand the second and third, fourth and fifth bombs, but the first bomb, FBI was already on top of this. So if you want to deal with the FBI or whatever the things are, however, just look up my official Black Panther movie review, and I break down how the FBI and CIA get down. They're not like they're like the Hollywood division of the government. They make sure everything is digestible for the masses and the public. So when you have something like this go down, you got to really start to create a narrative off the rip. Like, you can't let the facts get out or nothing like that. So soon as some shit pop off where they like, oh, this is not a normal killing, then you call the FBI so they can cover the shit up and make the shit digestible. It's like the Men in Black or some shit like that. But the story goes on to say, Anthony Stephen House, the black man who was murdered, was a project manager at Texas Quarries, a supplier of limestone for the state. So basically he worked for the state as a project manager. Like, so he really wasn't doing too much of anything. That was a nice job he had. And then we had the young man, 17, Draylen Mason, who passed away at 17. He was known to be a musical genius, could play all different types of instruments, string, horns, literally could go to any college that he wanted to. Yeah, and they said, like, right before he died, he got accepted to Oberlin, where they only accept 170 students a year. So, you know, very talented young man. And these two gentlemen was just at home one day and received a package, opened up the package, and then it just detonated. They said that the detonator was a remote start. So we're dealing with some high-tech stuff that I don't think like no 23-year-old could have just made, you know, in his basement. But that's neither here nor there. I got more questions than I got answers. And so we got Mr. Mason, Draylen Mason, said one of the most remarkable talents. He led the youth orchestra. Like, he was like, they said that he was just an awesome leader, awesome performer, was destined to do great things, a composer. But then shit started to get interesting when you find out that the older gentleman that was murdered, Anthony House, and the younger teenager that was murdered, Draylen Mason, actually knew each other. And they didn't know each other like buddies. They knew each other through like family relationships. So Mr. House was the stepson of Freddie Dixon, a former pastor at a historic black church in Austin, according to the Washington Post. And Dixon is friends with Mason's grandfather. Oh, Dixon is friends with, Freddie Dixon is friends with Draylen Mason's grandfather. Like, they old buddies or whatever. They go to the same church in Austin, Texas. Freddie Dixon is the pastor, and Draylen Mason's grandfather is a dentist, but really super well-to-do, affluent African Americans doing good. And now we just really want to point it out, like really what happened. So on March 2nd, a bomb goes off, kills Anthony House. And then 10 days later, not right down the street, Draylen Mason, the second explosion, he kills Draylen Mason on the second explosion with the second bomb. And then from there, nobody else dies. We have a 75-year-old female who wants to remain unknown, and two men in their 20s who would like to be remained unknown. And then we also have a FedEx facility where a person got bombed that people want to be unknown. They want their identities to be kept in private. So basically, if you add it all up, when all the dust is settled, you have 6 bombs and 2 dead niggas, 2 dead black people, 2 dead African Americans, 2 dead rich African Americans that, you know, maybe it's a lot going on in the news where people don't just generally want to care or miss it, or I don't know. But it should be more attention to this case, and it should be people that really care or know what's going on, and we shouldn't really have these questions, because the reason why I bring all of this up, and I've talked for the past 10 minutes, is to say, well, why? Because we can't say that it was a random act of violence, now can we? Especially if you have some old, affluent African Americans involved that know each other. This thing doesn't happen. Or does it? Or if it does happen, what are the circumstances for young African American males to be murdered, right, but still be connected to rich, affluent black men? Generally, when black men are killed, they're killed because they're on some mess, they're on some trash, and they put themselves in a bad environment, bad situation, gang violence, selling drugs, just putting yourself out there, and then certain shit happens, it's sad, we wish it didn't happen, but, he kind of brought that on himself. But when you have situations like Draylen Mason, Anthony House, Ennis Cosby, Bill Cosby's son, he got murdered on the side of the highway. Like, why? See, we got more questions than we got answers. Who else? And then we got guys like Trayvon Martin. Why did Trayvon Martin die? And then we got people like Philando Castile. Why did Philando Castile die? Now, these are just examples that I know off the top of my head where there's an older black male who is Masonically affiliated with a secret society. Now, I got more questions than I got answers, so I don't necessarily know why when a black man that gets murdered in direct connection to a Freemasonic, whatever the case may be, whether it's your uncle, daddy, grandfather, whatever, he and the Masons, but your ass is subject to be getting killed and going through all types of drama. I mean, and I just noticed this pattern, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I also know that, the news generally isn't real based upon theatrics and ritual. So I think the family really needs to understand what ritual really is and how it plays out in your everyday life. These Masons, and I don't want to just lump all Masons together because that's a mistake as well. But let's just say secret society black people, they want to ascend the ladder of degrees. And at first you do rituals inside of the hall. I'm just imagining. Like I said, I got more questions than I got answers. So please enlighten my ass. You feel me? As you first do your degree work and you do your rituals, it's all held indoors. And I feel as though they're trying to just feel you out, trying to figure you out, see if you're ready for the big leagues. But as you ascend to them 29s and 30s and 31s, all them higher degrees, which ain't really higher compared to a spiritual man, but for the sake of organizational conversation, as they try to ascend through their degrees, their degree work spills outside of the lodge. And then they may have to do ritual work outside of the lodge in the real world. But it's still a ritual. Everybody's in on it except people who aren't wearing the flag or wearing the colors. So generally, when you look at the news, you're not seeing real life. You're seeing theatrics being played out in front of you, and some plays are good, some plays suck, some plays make you cry, some plays make you laugh, but it's all theatrics, and depending on how these things work out will get your ascension in degree work. You do good, you do good. You fuck up, you fuck up. So in this scenario, there is some good, well, I can't call it good nor bad. You imagine that the guy was successful 2 out of 3, or maybe he hit his mark. But generally, whatever happened, there's more to it than meets the eye. And that's all I'm trying to say. I don't want to get into conspiracy theory or nothing like that. I'm just really just pointing out regular facts, that shit that just really don't make sense whatsoever. So yeah. Anthony House has a stepfather named Reverend Freddie Dixon. Draylen Mason has a grandfather by the name of Norman Mason. Norman Mason and Reverend Freddie Dixon are friends. Interesting. It's like Mason-Dixon Line. What's the Mason-Dixon Line? Well, the Mason-Dixon Line is a line between the free and slave states before the war between the states. The survey established in Maryland, Pennsylvania boundary began in 1763, but halted by the Indian Wars. They don't say that. So generally, the Mason-Dixon line is just an imaginary line that separates the country between slave states and non-slave states. Well, not even slave states, but between free and slave states. And being above the Mason-Dixon line meant you was free, and being below the Mason-Dixon line meant that you was a slave. But I just find it interesting as we continue to investigate and ask questions that no one seems to have an answer to. So let's just break down this Masonic ritual one more time. The definition of a Masonic ritual refers to the scripted words and actions that are spoken or performed during the degree work in a Masonic lodge. Masonic symbolism is that which is used to illustrate the principles which Freemasonry espouses. So, 90% of the niggas that y'all listen to and admire on YouTube that's popping, that got a following, generally follows Masonic symbolism and Masonic ritual to the fucking T, if you know what you're looking for. And they don't even be talking about nothing spiritual. If you notice, they talk about everything that happens in the news. And see, I just got questions. I don't have answers. I'm just really just trying to figure out that, these niggas are clearly Masons. And they got the hottest YouTube channel on YouTube. But they want to talk about everything besides that secret society that they a part of. They just want to keep your attention and keep getting their YouTube money with their views by, constantly speaking on hot topics and things of that nature. So, Freemasonry is described in its own ritual as a beautiful or peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. The symbolism of Freemasonry is found throughout the Masonic Lodge and contains many of the working tools of a medieval or Renaissance stonemason. So generally, when we talk about masonry and things of that nature, what are we building with masonry? We're building a house. You understand? So generally, nothing is seen as a coincidence or a mistake. So just pay attention to the words that they use, because everything is in the words. And I had a video for Philando Castile, but the way that my program is working, I couldn't get no sound from it. But it's a video of Philando Castiles. You could just Google it. Just type in Mason Philando Castiles CNN, and you'll see his uncle there with the Freemasonry pendant and talking about the widow's son and sending out a distress call. So generally, what's going on is that these people is playing a game on top of life that you're not even privy to, and if you are privy to it, you're taking a sworn oath not to say anything. And, a lot of people fear death than they fear anything. So generally, you put death in front of a person's head, and then that just shuts it down completely. And like I said, I'm not here to bash the Freemasons or diss the Freemasons. I just got questions that if your dad is a Grand Master of a lodge and you just so happen to die, and then we make your death the most important death that ever happened, as if to say that millions of black men, died over the past 20 years. So generally, just this one death is more important based upon what? If I had money, I would bet because it's the daddy and his affiliations. But I don't bet. I don't gamble. Like I said, I just got questions. I don't have answers. And so that brings up the case of the Boule, Sigma Pi Phi. Generally, it's interesting that the fraternity was established in Chicago, Illinois, and then Baltimore, Maryland, but it started in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so these were the same lines that the Mason-Dixon line went through. And so this is how this thing happened. And you might have to argue with me, you might not agree with me, or whatever. But before 1904, there wasn't many niggas around. There wasn't many Africans around here. There wasn't many black people around here. It was mostly Native Americans with a few niggas sprinkled in here and there, believe that or not. And then you had this group come up in 1904 that decided we don't want to be Indians no more. We don't want our nationality no more. All we want to do is assimilate closer to the dominant society. And we'll do whatever it takes. We'll be whatever it takes, and we will do whatever it takes. And so the dominant society said, you really want to be down with us? And, the Boule said, yeah, we'll do whatever. Well, these black Wall Streets all over the country. I need y'all to go in, tell us about them, and then we'll come through, follow, and shut them down. Or probably didn't give them no plans. They just wanted them to point out every single black Wall Street. And do you know that W.E.B. Du Bois, who is a member of Sigma Pi Phi, visited every black Wall Street right before the government came through after him and tore them all down? So do you know that it's not white people that destroyed us? It's really people that share our same skin complexion, but don't share our same outlook on independence and knowing our history. And so generally we have a group of dark-skinned individuals parading around as if they care about other dark-skinned individuals, but really it's the total opposite. And it's nothing that you could look at a dark-skinned person and say, this person cares about me because his skin is resembling mine and we have the same features and we like the same music and we can do a hell of an electric slide and his mama cooks some good-ass macaroni and cheese, so that's my brother. I think we need to be smarter than that. Because generally, these niggas went and piss on a fire to save your life. And we celebrate them and appreciate them for being black professionals and things of that nature and ascending the success ladder in society. And they give us hope that, maybe one day we can be on their level. But if y'all niggas don't wake yourself up like real fast, y'all niggas gonna miss it because you gonna think that it's about some black people shit when it was never about black people or African Americans or none of that. It was clearly about you on a personal level, whether you African American, mixed, you have no control over that. You were born in this world as a spirit. The human body is an illusion. So generally, everybody that's getting you all worked up on this is kind of making you fall short. And when they going through their little beefs and wars and shit, like what happened March 3rd and March 12th, they going to invite your energy in, or they going to play you for stupid and make you think that, it's a race war, or, this white man was out here just trying to bomb and kill random black people. And now you worried, just like Trayvon Martin. The thing that got people so captivated, one of the catch phrases was when Barack Obama said, he could be one of my sons. Like, my sons, Masons. And it's like, yeah, it could be one of your sons, Barack Obama, but as long as you ain't a part of these secret societies or these boules, you ain't in the war. So I mean, of course, death is promised to all of us, but generally, you don't got to worry about these little petty back and forth boule wars that they got going on that they not even talking about, and it's right in front of us. Like, you can't even deny it. So, one of the most aforementioned and most famous boule schools is Howard. Took this off of Wikipedia, actually, speaking on the Boule Sigma Pi Phi. So Howard, a lot of school where upper class blacks go and all of this thing, and like I said earlier, Draylen Mason, he could have went to any school that he want to, any school in the world, but he decided to go to Howard, by coincidence, or maybe he was, connected, because generally they say, people go to Howard, long lineages. Grandfather went, daddy went, I go, my kids gonna go, type of deal. You understand? And that's all secret society boule shit. And I'm not connected to no group or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't even understand that mentality, so I generally don't knock it. I just don't understand it. I'm kind of an independent thinker, and I really couldn't handle a group of people telling me what to do, whether it be my daddy or mama or anybody. So generally, we got this young man caught up in all of this weird stuff, and then we about to just end this thing and really just talk about the bomber and the games that they played. Remember, I was telling you about ritual and Masonic ritual and how it's all theatrical and how they use words and symbolism and things of that nature. Case in point, Marc Antony Conditt's family. First of all, Julius Caesar was stabbed 23 times. Anthony House was murdered March 2nd. So you mean to tell me a 23-year-old man built these bombs and really high tech remote bombs, and nobody knew that he had a hit? Like, he never been to the military or the army or no shit like that. It was a skill bomb, and his grandmother said the shit was unthinkable. Like, if anything, he's low key and peaceful. So it's all just symbolism and codes. Generally, you don't know that this dude existed because he's quote unquote dead. You understand? So you never hear his side of the story. They now working on a remix tape right now for him right now. They said there's a video of him confessing to the crimes. I like to see that. And it's heavily edited and put together by now. You understand? So generally we got this man who murdered two men with no clear motive other than the fact that, you know, we got these affluent black families that appear to be Boule, but we don't know for sure. This is a secret. So we can only guess and we can only hypothesize and things of that nature. But what we do have are the names. You understand? We do have Mason-Dixon and we do have Marc Antony Conditt. And we also have fucking Roman history that we could deal with. And so beware of the Ides of March is a saying in Roman history which happens on March 15th when March 15th, so that's 3 and 6 is 9. 9 is, yeah. So generally, I thought I had some, but I didn't. I do that sometimes. But generally, March 15th, beware the Ides of March. That is a time where you have to pay all of your debts. And so Julius Caesar was warned about the Ides of March, and he said that people was going to kill him. So ultimately, it was Marc Antony's job to warn Julius Caesar before the mob killed him. But as history shows, Marc Antony didn't get there in time, and they ended up getting Caesar before he get there, and he stabbed him on March 15th, the Ides of March. And so we have this young man who supposedly bombed somebody, but we would never know because he supposedly did. Marc Antony Conditt. And you know, if something was ever to happen to me, they'll be like, you know, John Jenkins. You know, if something was to happen to you, they'll be like Elizabeth Sherwin. Why, when something happens to Mr. Marc Conditt, they change it to Marc Antony Conditt? So generally, you're not looking at a name to a person that exists. You're looking at a code word to Masons throughout the world. Marc Antony Conditt. Conditt is a word that is derived from Middle English that means conduit, a conduit. A conduit is a person or organization that acts as a channel for the transmission of something. So a message. Marc Antony's message. And ultimately, you know that he's a sleeper cell or MK Ultra or just he doesn't exist or just a made up personality based upon just the name Marc Antony Conditt. So how did Marc Antony, the real Marc Antony from Rome or Greece, how did he die? He committed suicide. Oh shit. He committed suicide just like Mr. Marc Antony Conditt. So generally they not into the story, or they way past that. Now it's just messages being sent back and forth between factions and wars and things of that nature that if you concerned about, you know, paying your rent, you probably wouldn't even give a shit about. You probably just be like, oh, that's so sad and some random people got bombed. But ultimately, all of this shit is happening before your eyes, and I just think that it's important because you'll generally feel like these is real stories, or you won't even care about them. But if this was 1996 and this story had happened, this shit would be like we would know everything there is to know about Draylen Antony house. You know, understand? Like this is a sad situation. You know, two men lost their lives basically for nothing as it seems, and nobody's out crying, nobody's worrying, because ultimately they put another smoke screen and another distraction the same time as this real shit was going down. Or I don't know if it's real or fake, I just don't know. But they have the shooting in Sacramento where the young man gets shot 20 times, and so that has all of black people's attention, and rightfully so, I imagine, if he actually did get shot 20 times and all of this stuff is real. But generally, when you deal with the news and all of this, man, social media, man, you have to think twice. You have to do your research before you create emotional frequency. And, you know, I don't do these types of videos often. I only do them when I'm compelled or when the shit is just obvious. You understand? And Marc Antony had a relationship with Cleopatra. This is how he ended up dying, and just representing the relationship to the African world and how it was taboo then, and it probably is still taboo now to a certain extent. But ultimately, Marc Antony passed away from suicide, and then today, well, not today, I don't know, maybe the 21st or the 22nd, when they found this young man supposedly in the vehicle, and they knew everything about him, and he had time to get into his car and blow himself up. So, like I said, I got more questions than I got answers, and I just really I was gonna make a Facebook post about this shit, and I was just like, man, I just got way too many questions and way too much shit to say. So generally, if you have any questions to what I'm talking about, please enlighten me, because I'm so confused on this story. Any background information, any type of help or advice you can give me on this situation, I really appreciate it, because I don't know what the fuck what they got going on nowadays, man. For sure. For sure. And some comments. But man, I appreciate everybody who is listening, man, because I'm just really just trying to really figure this shit out, because this shit is right in front of our faces and people want to act like this shit real, man. But doubt everything, man. And if y'all got any information on this story, y'all know these people personally or anything to that, please enlighten me, because the news is not talking about this story for whatever reason. Like, do y'all know these people? Do y'all know these folks? What's the connection? What are we missing? What's the motives? Like, we need to know why black men are dying. And if we look at it, it's so crazy that when a black man dies, you don't even give it no time or no thought or anything. It's just kind of one of those things that be like, oh yeah, well, gotta get to work. Like, that shit don't stop nothing. You understand what I'm saying? But we so desensitized to black male death that's what scares me the most. Because if it was a situation where this was a serious thing where you could just be opening up packages and being bombed, then don't you think we should have some protocol or some awareness on the situation? Or if you just know for a fact that it's an isolated event, then, well, what's the scenario? What's the situation? Because I find that hard to believe that that's just a random act of violence. I can't accept that. There's more to the story, man. And that's what we here for, man. That's why we had this platform. That's why we can have these conversations. Because generally, you know, the mainstream media is not going to talk about this shit. And that's all we got. And then when we get on YouTube, we get around all of these Masonic niggas telling us everything through the guise of, like, you know, these niggas don't really want to help you. these niggas really want to get their money. You understand? And that's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with getting money, but just don't think that because they got unks on and pyramids and saying Hotep and blessed beloved and peace to you, my brother, that these niggas give a fuck about you, because sooner or later they got their hands out with, they gonna need some dollars or they ain't gonna pay you no attention. So, you really want to deal with people that can talk to you on a one-on-one level, especially if you're dealing with spirituality, and I don't want y'all to think that this shit is about conspiracy theories or nothing, because I don't have no conspiracy theories. I don't know what the fuck is going on, my nigga. The shit just not adding up to me. You feel me? It's a difference. You know what I'm saying? So don't just write it off like conspiracy theory and da 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 da. Like, no. Explain this shit, bro. Cause don't nobody just randomly send bombs to people's front door. It's a hit, and it's things that's going on in this world that they just not gonna talk about on the news. They just not. So if they not gonna talk about it on the news and you can't get it on YouTube, then what the fuck is really happening? Cause you look up and you see Black Magic 363 and you like, damn. That's where everybody going now. It used to be Side Netter, now it's Black Magic, but they ain't doing nothing but doing love and hip hop synopsises and summaries and shit. So, you know what I'm saying? What's next for us? What's next? Who's really woke out there? Who's really paying attention? So, that was my rant. I'm done. Y'all can have a good night. Peace.